85% of the careers and jobs that we have today will not exist by 2030. So, what can we do to prepare children for a world of constant change? In my career, I've been surrounded by innovators and visionaries. And let me tell you what I've learned about them. To start with, they're curious and they ask lots of questions. They also risk takers and they're not afraid of failing. And they're natural collaborators and problem solvers. And one thing that they all have in common is that they're all under 5 years old. In my career, early then, I left a job in corporate America to start a career in early childhood education. And during those first years, I immersed myself in every aspect of the operation. During those first years, I changed diapers, I drove the bus, and I taught preschoolers. And this is what I learned about preschoolers. What struck me the most was learning that they had every skill they need to be successful in the future. And that got me thinking. So if every child has everything they need and they're born innovators, what can we do to preserve that creative confidence of the early years and turn children into the fearless problem solvers of tomorrow? That became my life's mission. Neuroscience tells us that 90% of a child's brain develops by the time a child is 5. And during those early years, neurons in different parts of the brain are establishing connections. Language is developing, and we're laying the foundation for all future learning. As caregivers, we play an important role in shaping the architecture of a child's brain. And what we say, what we do, can either nurture those abilities or let them fade away. Well, later on in my career, I became a preschool director. And now it was my turn to coach and train new teachers. And I remember one day a new teacher stepped into my office and she was concerned about how to get her children back on track. So I offered to help and give her feedback. The next day, I went to her classroom to observe her. And I saw how this young teacher had her perfect lesson planned. Her students had a completely different agenda. To start with, she asked everybody to be quiet and listen. But then one of them started running around, another one did the same, and in a matter of just a few minutes, everybody else was running around. Just very few were paying attention. And as I sat in the back of the room as an administrator, I couldn't help but empathize with this young teacher. Because yes, preschoolers can be very intimidating and they can smell confidence. They want to know if you have what it takes to take control of yourself and then take control of the class. Over the years, I worked with hundreds of caregivers. Based on these experiences and the study of research, we've identified strategies that makes these caregivers very successful. And to our surprise, it was not the level of education or the years of experience. It was the self-regulation, self-awareness, and also their commitment to implementing these strategies. So I know you probably want to know what the strategies are. But before I share with you the strategies, I have one question. What skills would you like your child to develop? Notice that the first thing that popped into your mind was not like, I want my child to be good at math or literacy. Most likely, you thought of, I want my child to have problem-solving skills or be creative. This is the science behind it. 20% of how we do in life has to do with our IQ. And what that means is that 80% of all the skills that we need to be successful are soft skills. And those skills are not necessarily taught in schools. What that means is that if we don't learn them at home and we don't learn them at school, probably don't learn them at all. So, as your child's first teacher, you have the opportunity to introduce the strategies on a daily basis. So now let me introduce you the skills to unleash your child's potential. Well, the first strategy is self emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is actually a better predictor of success than your SAT scores and even your IQ. Just think about this. A child, a gifted child that is not able to connect with others rarely comes up with innovations. Think about a doctor that is not able to listen, or a software engineer that programs a software that is not marketable. This is the science behind it. Everything we hear, we smell, we touch travels through our body as an electric signal until it reaches the base of the brain. And from there, it must go to the prefrontal cortex. But before it gets there, it must first go through the place of our brain where emotions are generated. And what that means is that we are wired to feel before we think. And we all know that behavior comes after our emotions. But what if you would teach your child how to use their whole brain? That is, how to first understand their own emotions, self-regulate, then consider consequences, and then think before they act. And I know we've all been there. The day where the kids are fighting in the back of the car with arguments such as she did it first, or the days where the toddler decides to throw a tantrum in the supermarket. And then everybody else is judging our parenting skills. But remember, the next time you're about to lose your temper, that you are modeling your child's behavior, and that every situation is an opportunity for your child to learn a new skill. For example, what do you do when your kids fight in the back of the car? You can remind them the importance of listening and communicating respectfully. And what do you do when your toddler throws a tantrum in the supermarket? You first regulate yourself, then go at eye level and remind your child how to gain self-composure. Self-regulation, understanding your own emotions, comes before social awareness. That means understanding how other people feel. And that is the foundation for empathy and also social responsibility. The second strategy is mindsets of the future of work. Mindsets are the beliefs that we have about ourselves and influence how we think, how we act, and what we say. And mindset is also the difference between success and failure. The key to unlocking your child's greed, perseverance, and success is the growth mindset. An idea developed by Stanford professor Carol Dweck that reminds us that intelligence is not fixed, that we can always grow our intelligence when we face challenges. And that is a great idea. So how does the growth mindset looks like? Remember that your words have power. So you can introduce growth mindset by incorporating the principles and vocabulary of these principles. For example, what do you do when your child says, "This is challenging"? You can turn it around and say something like this: "Well, this is hard, but remember that challenges help us grow our brain." Or what do you do when your child says, "I failed"? You can turn it around and say instead, "Well, let's reframe this. Let's see what we learn and what we can do better." In our school family, we make each other accountable by introducing routines and rituals. For example, when somebody makes a mistake, everybody else sings along to a song. Don't worry, mistakes help us grow our brain. And then the third strategy is the maker mindset. The biggest gift you can give your child is to empower them to learn how to learn. Have you thought about all the wrong answers that we have given children over the years to questions such as, Where do babies come from? Or where did dinosaurs go? As a parent, I know I have. And I also know that we all have go to answers like, I don't know, go ask your dad. But what if we can turn it around? And instead of giving your child the wrong answer, the next time we can tell them something like this. That is actually a very good idea. Why don't we write this in our family question board? And then from there, you can actually go and read a book or conduct an experiment. But then to take it to the next level, you have to use your hands. Do you remember the first thing you created with your own hands? Things like maybe a sandcastle or a Lego city? Making things makes it memorable. Maker Center Learning is an idea developed by Project Zero at Harvard University that empowers children to become agents of change or to innovate by making. So let's say your child is very interested about building materials and how to build a house. So you would start by studying the subject by reading a book or watching a video. And then you take it to the next level by sketching a design and then building, creating a prototype out of card boxes. But let's say when the finished prototype is there, we can actually introduce something that Harvard calls the thinking routines. So these are habits of the mind, things, sequence of thoughts that we can introduce to teach kids innovation. For example, you can compare your sketch with a prototype and look for opportunities to make it better. Let's say your child forgot about the kitchen. That's a great opportunity to introduce children the concept that everything we do can be improved. The reality is that current students will enter a workforce where change is the new normal. And to survive, they will have to be self-directed, creative, and original. But don't worry, because your child is already an innovator. The only thing you have to do is to nurture those natural abilities. By modeling how you think, how you feel, and what you say, you're empowering children and giving them the tools they need to succeed in a world of constant change. And also, you're giving them the gift of the innovation advantage.